Jeff, can you come join us?
Yeah.
What's the odds better? Group one.
The group one.
You're gonna see the slideshow.
Barb, you have to mute. Oh, you are muted. Okay. I keep your background sounds, but I don't know from whom.
Oh, geez, that's Mike Bach. Good morning.
Hello, Greg.
So for everyone here already, welcome to the tree summit. We're gonna enjoy some tree photos for a few minutes as folks join the meeting, and feel free to chat amongst yourselves as you wish. Welcome. Welcome everyone to the tree summit. We're going to wait a couple more minutes as folks join the meeting, and we'll start the program at about 10:02. So welcome.
What I really like, Cindy. I like my green.
We're also take the green thing out.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you enjoyed those tree photos as you came into the meeting. And we're going to get started with the second annual Lake Oswego Tree Summit. So I'd like to invite Betsy to start us off. And if everyone else can stay muted, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Trees, the cornerstone of our ecosystem. Who are they? By what method, magic, or miracle do they form and grow and sustain and die and regenerate? Why are they crucial in forestalling and reversing climate crisis? In this, our second annual Tree Summit, we will talk about how trees grow, what they do, what they need, and what indispensable partners they are for the health of the environment, our common home. Good morning and welcome to the second annual Tree Summit. Trees clean the air, soil, and water, sequester carbon, provide habitat, buffer the wind, absorb noise, prevent soil erosion, reduce energy consumption, increase property values, and contribute to emotional and physical well-being. Trees bring out the best in us. Studies have shown that neighborhoods with mature trees have lower crime rates. Trees inspire us. The Pulitzer Prize in 2019 for fiction was given to Richard Powers for The Overstory, a book about trees and our relationship with them. Trees Summon Our Poets, by Mary Lou Culver, a neighbor of Old Town's historic Grand Douglas fir, the peg tree. Dancing trees. I love how trees move to the music of the wind. They dance and they romance the earth with their moves. But trees know their place. Even grounded, trees can toss and shimmy and waltz on their dance floor with the best of us when exhilarated by a wild river of wind. Today, we meet again to celebrate trees. We will begin with a review of what has happened since our inaugural tree summit 1 year ago. Then Kristen Ramstad, manager of the Oregon Urban and Community Forestry Assistance Program for the Oregon Department of Forestry, will present on our precious urban forest. We will have 2 breakout sessions in small groups and a guided discussion. And what would a tree conference be without tree trivia? We are excited about today's conference and hope you will leave feeling edified, entertained, and enlightened. Welcome. And now, Stephanie Wagner.
I guess I have to unmute, right? So welcome everybody. And thank you, Betsy, for such a lovely introduction. I do want to emphasize that the organization that let us get together today was orchestrated by the Oswego Lake Watershed Council and the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network. 2 wonderful organizations in our community that are working together to think about what our, how we function as a community, both as people, but also with our natural environment. So as we mentioned, this is the 2nd annual, so now we can say it's annual, Tree Summit. And we'll be, I wanted to do just a little rehash of what came out of the first Tree Summit, and then give a little bit of review of what, okay. My slide advance is not working. Here we go, got it. Okay, figured it out. So a little of things that came out of the last summit. So the last time that we got together, we did a lot of the, Betsy actually did a wonderful review of kind of thinking about what are the benefits of trees and what does it mean to have trees and be a city where trees are an important part of it. And out of that and our discussions that we had, we came up with 4 kind of activity areas that we wanted to work on to actually think about how are we continuing to take care of our trees, honor our trees, and make sure that we're preserving our trees in this community, which are such a significant part of it. So one of the first things that we, so these were the, So one of the first things that we wanted to work on was commenting on type 2 permits and working with our neighbors and stuff to make sure that trees aren't cut down unnecessarily. And this is a pretty dramatic picture, but a group had formed and was active in the community, but they actually really ramped up after the last, after the tree summit. And one of the things that happened is this group actually looks at the type 2 permits that go that when people put in to actually cut a tree in the community. And they were able to really increase the number of comments. And one of the results of that was that when people actually saw that there were comments about them cutting their trees, there was a tendency that maybe they would withdraw their permit. So that gave them a chance to think about what that tree was and what was important. And then overall, it improved communication with the City of Lake Oswego staff around tree cutting permits, and then started to set the stage for maybe some other aspects of how we want to protect and make sure that we're protecting trees in the future. And if anybody can unmute and tell me what I have to push to actually go to the next slide without having to go all the way down.
Stephanie, try just clicking with your mouse. Just click right there. See if that works.
There we go. Did that do it? Okay. The other thing that came out of the permit was that it was working with, we wanted to work with HOAs. Quite a bit of our undeveloped area in the, or common areas in that HOAs are responsible for. And there's some of those common areas people really don't know the best way to help take care of them. So we've started an initiative of getting HOAs working together, and the Watershed Council actually has been able to fund projects with up in Mountain Park, in the Westlake HOA. So up in Mountain Park, there was a culvert removal and some stream restoration type work that was able to be done with money that the Watershed Council helped brought in, and then also a huge commitment from the HOA to take care of that natural area. Same thing with a Westlake HOA, but they are actually protecting a significant oak woodland that kind of surrounds the property there. I don't know if you guys ever, when you drive down Cruiseway and see all the oaks over on the right-hand side, there's a big area of those are actually the responsibility of the Westlake HOA. And we've been working on a project with the city of Lake Oswego and the Watershed Council on, and with the HOA to take care of those oaks. And then we've started a project with Village on the Lake, where we're able to take an area that had become really overgrown with ivy and stuff, and actually have done an amazing restoration working with the HOA there. And in all of these, the HOAs, it's been a partnership where the HOAs have contributed funds. The Watershed Council, and the Watershed Council has been able to bring in funds from the city and also from the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. The third thing that we wanted to, that came out of the last summit, was the need for developing an urban forest management plan for the whole city, so that we had a comprehensive view of how we were protecting our urban forest and the trees, and actually helping to think about how we can actually maybe change code or development code to actually increase tree protection in the city. So a committee formed, and then COVID broke out and kind of slowed things down a little bit. But there has been work done on the research on plans, and then outreach to city council and staff about the importance of developing a plan. And we're hoping that that work will go through significantly in the future. And the other thing that we wanted to do was find out ways to get our community more involved at the neighborhood level. And so I'd like to introduce Kat Maloney, who the Watershed Council actually brought in as our education and research specialist to have some staff time actually devoted to helping with this. And Kat is going to talk about the work that we've done in more at the neighborhood level.
Hello, everyone. Great to have you all here. I'm very excited that we had a great turnout. And I'm excited to share a few of our programs that we've started with all of you. So the first thing I'm going to go over is, we mentioned the Urban Forest Committee at the city level. One of the projects I've been working on is getting together various folks from neighborhood associations to put together urban forest committees at the neighborhood level, where they can discuss projects and collaborate with other neighborhoods, and hopefully get some information to the city level, and just have that collaboration within neighborhoods. Unfortunately, again, because of COVID-19, it's been a little bit of a challenge getting everybody together. I first started reaching out to folks in March, which, as you imagine, is a little bit challenging. Everybody's stressed about COVID-19. So that is a project I'm working on, but again, because of COVID-19, it's kind of an ongoing process, but we are making progress, which is fantastic. I've reached out to several leaders, and I'm hoping to get a meeting together in the very near future, so we can start doing some good work in the neighborhoods. All right, can everybody hear me okay? I'm hearing that some people can't hear me, so just want to check. Looks like people can hear me okay, great. So the other thing is you can see here, we have iTree survey tool, which we've developed. I've been working throughout. Yeah, sure, I can speak a little slower. Thank you. So the iTree survey is a tool I've been developing with the help of a lot of great volunteers with Oswego Lake Watershed Council. What the iTree tool is going to be is a community science project that gets folks outside and go ahead and monitor tree DBH and various parameters that we can put into a system. And it can monitor and measure tree height, tree, how much carbon is sequestered and how it helps buildings as far as climate change. So how we can look at trees for climate change mitigation. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm seeing again, people are not having a good time hearing me.
Let's take my headphones off. Is this any better, Mike, and other folks who are having trouble hearing me? Okay.
Yeah, that's a little better.
There
I
we
think,
go.
Kat,
Great, thanks.
yeah.
Thanks for letting me know in the chat. So again, that iTree survey, where we are in the development process, we have put together several groups for beta testing who have gone out into the field and tested out the iTree with the Survey 123 tool, which is a GIS tool so we can map these trees and the data. And I'm hoping to have a training sometime in the next month or two for people to get outside and start measuring these trees so we can hopefully have a better idea of what the urban forest, the health of the urban forest in Lake Oswego is, as well as anything we can do as far as what our plantings are. So I think that's pretty much it for the iTree survey. If you want to advance to the next slide, Stephanie. All right, so the other thing that we're trying to think of is we want to expand the view from just individual trees to our urban forest as a whole. So part of that is the iTree tool and getting an idea of the health of our current trees and seeing where we can improve. We also wanted to understand the urban forest ecosystem, which Stephanie has been fantastic in being an advocate for soil. So we're starting with soil. We have a program that we've established with the help of Clackamas Soil and Water Conservation District and the National USDA Service for Soil Your Undies. We've worked to develop a program where we work with local schools to measure undies. So essentially what you do is you bury your undies for 2 months in about 6 inches of soil. And then you dig them up in 2 months and you take a look and see what they look like. The more ragged your undies are, the more healthy your soil is and your soil ecosystem. So it's really an eye-opening experience. And we're offering this to our high school students who are supposed to be unburying their undies right now. And we're hoping to expand this to elementary school students in the springtime with an Earth Day event in 2021. Stephanie, do you have anything to add?
I think the only thing I want to add on the Soil Your Undies is it's not just for, so we're going to kick it off for the whole
You still
community.
here, Stephanie?
We want everybody to start thinking about how great your soil is. So, because trees aren't going to grow well if we don't have good soil supporting them.
I think I'm all set on this slide. So Stephanie, if you don't have anything else to add, we can probably move on to the next one. All right, so we're at our first a little icebreaker session. So what we're going to do is have a little icebreaker asking you all what you think an urban forest is. So if you want to post in the chat, we're running a little bit behind, so we're going to just do the chat rather than raising a hand in Zoom. But if you want to put a response to this question in the chat, limit the response to 1 to 2 sentences, and then Jack will go ahead and read those off. And we'll just kind of see what you all think an urban forest is.
So I'll read responses as they come in through the chat. So first answer here, Springbrook Park is an urban forest. Trees which connect habitat, a system of trees supporting life within the community. Every tree in the community is part of the urban forest. The forest that should not have lots of invasive trees. An urban forest is an ecosystem within a city that helps with many aspects of the community. Community trees and forests, the trees that shade our neighborhoods, all canopy layers, greenery in our urban spaces, a large grouping of trees in a populated area, and trees as they mix with the city, nature amongst our homes. These are some great answers. So thank you, everyone. I'll stop narrating now, but feel free to continue putting those into the chat. Native trees and understory supporting native wildlife. So I'm getting some really great imagery about what an urban forest looks like to everyone. So thank you all for interacting with that question. I'm going to turn it back over to Kat, and we are going to be moving on to our keynote presentation now.
All right, thanks, Jack. All right, so I wanted to introduce Kristen Ramstad. We're really excited that she's joining us here. So just want to do a brief introduction about Kristen. Kristen's always been a plant person, and she grew up gardening with her mother. Over several years as a young adult, she worked on a 1,000-acre timber farm in Southern Oregon, served as a stint in the Peace Corps working with farmers in the Philippines, and taught gardening in underserved neighborhoods in Seattle. In 1992, she started working at the Oregon Department of Forestry as a community assistance forester in the then new Urban and Community Forest Assistance Program. And what she did was she provided technical urban forestry assistance to cities throughout Oregon. In 2017, she became the manager of the Urban and Community Forest Assistance Program. And she holds a BS in production horticulture from Oregon State University, as well as a master's in forest science from the Yale School of the Environment. And she is also an International Society of Arboricultural Certified Arborist, a former Washington State University Master Gardener, and an inactive Master Woodland Manager with OSU. And she and her husband currently own and steward 70 acres of forest land near Monmouth, Oregon. She is also the mom of 2 sons. She still enjoys gardening and loves dogs. Of course, I love dogs. All right, so we're all set. Thanks, Kristen, for joining us, and it's all yours.
Okay, I'm officially unmuted and I will share my screen. Okay, now that I'm sharing my screen and I can't see any of you, I need to ask, I hope you all can hear me. And
Yes, we can.
okay. And I also want to make sure that I can advance here. I also want to say that I tend to speak a little quickly. If I am going too fast, please don't hesitate to wave me down, and hopefully I will be able to see the message, and I will try to slow down.
That
Anyway.
sounds great, Kristen. I just want to let everyone know, if you have any questions, we will have a short question and answer closer to the end of the presentation, but feel free to put any questions in the chat as well. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes. Okay. So anyway, I'm thrilled to be here today. Thank you, Kat, for inviting me to serve as the keynote speaker for this Lake Oswego Tree Summit. Also, thank you, Stephanie, for briefly stepping in and talking through some of the ideas for this presentation while Kat was finishing up a project. So today's talk will be about urban forests and change. And to that end, I'd like to start off with a story about the type of change I see most often in my work. And I know it won't be a surprise. This is a photo from my neighborhood in Salem. And several years ago, a local developer wanted to build a small number of homes on a 1-acre parcel of land with trees on it. This was a motley stand of trees. I know that's a really technical term, but it was a mix of non-native conifers that had been topped under power lines and allowed to grow willy-nilly. Inside the stand, invasive laurel, English ivy, and holly grew everywhere. Several of the interior trees had forked tops and other defect, and it was clear that no one had managed or cared for this little forested acre for a long time. One could argue, I suppose, that despite these issues, there was still a fair amount of foliage intercepting rain, that there was soil below that was relatively undisturbed, a forest floor, such as it was, that could receive stormwater. Stand was probably providing habitat. So, undoubtedly carbon sequestration was going on, and it was still providing all sorts of ecological and environmental benefits to the area. But we can see what happened. And if you can see my pointer there, this is the little development. The landowner had bought this land with one goal in mind and was waiting until the economic stars aligned to build several houses on it. As it turned out, the development wasn't nearly as dense as it could have been, despite the way it looks in this photo. And it incorporated a fair amount of actually innovative ecological thinking into its design. Now, I don't like to see developers take down trees any more than any of you do, but there was part of me that felt that maybe a development in this little acre of neglected trees actually saved an acre of development somewhere in a healthier forest. I don't know, it's hard justification, but that's how I ended up thinking about it. But the bigger issue is, of course, that changes that land development brings to cities, and especially to urban forests, and the pressures that cities feel to allow development to happen are forces unto themselves. We hear a lot about climate change, which I will address later, but really the most significant changes in cities and in urban forests are the changes that we make locally. Urban forests, as I know, after hearing all the discussion, I know you know, are essential for combating the effects of climate change in cities. They're important for shading urban streams, sequestering carbon, etc. However, what is not often said, and what I have really come to see, is that to reap their benefits, we need to do our best to ensure that urban trees are functioning at their optimal capacity, because too often we thwart them along the way. So for the first part of this presentation, I will discuss some of the indicators I look for when I look at urban trees, which actually takes the form of kind of a one-sided conversation. Then I will discuss how I tend to use these observations. And then we'll take a break, and I think we'll be divided into break rooms, or maybe we'll do what we just did, and we'll discuss another question. And then in the second part of this talk, I will talk about some of the ways that global climate change is affecting our urban forests. And then I will briefly pivot and talk specifically about what to do about development around mature trees, specifically around mature Douglas fir. And then eventually, in the spirit of all keynotes, I hope to tie this all up in a neat little bow with some perspective on how to create positive change in your community. Although, frankly, from what I've just heard, it sounds like you guys are doing a great job at that already. So I'm really impressed with your definitions of urban forests that I saw come up in the chat. It really shows a greater understanding of urban forests than most of the people that I come across. But just to make sure that we're all on the same page, as far as I'm concerned, I see an urban forest that is comprised of tree canopy and related vegetation that's usually found within an urban growth boundary. All the trees that you describe, street trees, park trees, large forest patches and stands, backyard trees, trees in our neighborhood, trees along urban streams, trees in parking lots, these are all part of the urban forest. However, what the conventional definition often leaves out about an urban forest, and arguably every forest, is that our forests are defined by the quality and quantity of soil that support it and the moisture that keeps it alive. Also, the standard urban forestry definition neglects to acknowledge that a huge portion of every urban forest and every forest is invisible to us because it exists below the surface of the soil. So the first question I ask a tree or a tree stand is, what can you tell me about the soil you are growing in? What can I see in your growth that tells me about the soil here? So let's talk a little bit about soil. Now, I should warn you that the topics of the next few slides could be full day workshops in and of themselves, but I'll try to make a few salient points. Please realize there's a lot more to dig into should you want to. Okay, I know some of you know some basics about soil, and it's easy to go into a rabbit hole when you talk about soil because there's so much to know. The two things I want to communicate about soil are, first, that soil teems with life. Healthy soil, as many of you know who have participated already in the Soil Your Undies campaign, has its own soil food web of small and microscopic organisms that break down organic matter and make soil minerals available to plants. This is called the soil food web. What many people don't know is that plants also play a large role in determining the composition and population of a soil food web where they grow, because their root secretions nourish the soil organisms in ways that tailor the soil organisms to fit their needs. The second thing I want you to know about healthy soil is that it improves with age and lack of disturbance. And this is presuming, of course, that we have a tree canopy that is shedding material onto the surface floor and the soil organisms are slowly breaking that down. When you disturb soil and expose its organic matter to air, the organic matter breaks down much faster than it does when it was actually held within the soil. Long-held soil under mature trees is an important way to store carbon in the form of living roots and organic matter. Soil also plays an important role of storing and regulating the flow of water through a landscape. As far as I'm concerned, healthy, undisturbed soil is more valuable than gold. And I've actually been known to say, if you can't stop the trees from coming down, do everything that you can to protect the remaining undisturbed soil. The next thing I ask a tree is, what's going on with your roots? Many of us are raised believing that most trees have a taproot and that the root profile of a tree mirrors the image of a tree above ground. In reality, roots grow best when there's both moisture and air. And this means that roots of a field-grown tree would probably be found in the top 10 to 30 inches of soil, extending well beyond the canopy's drip line. Below 30 inches in many soils, there's not enough air for optimal root growth. And of course, where an actual tree is growing and how its roots spread out are determined by a lot of things, the other trees and other, boundaries or barriers that it might encounter. However, when you think of tree roots in an idealized way, picture the silhouette of a wine glass as the above ground portion of the tree on top of a pizza stone, which represents the broad but shallow spread of roots. Roots are picky about where they want to grow. Despite what many people think, roots do not move through a soil like a moisture-seeking missile, but if they encounter a cracked pipe, they will send in a microscopic root hair, and as it grows, it may make the pipe damage worse. Roots are opportunistic, but they are not predatory. Roots are really quite complicated, and I have to admit, I'm giving them very short shrift here. They can graft together and support other trees of the same species. They have special relationships with soil microorganisms and mycorrhizae, and they compete with each other for resources. They often look completely different from one species of plant to another, but for our purposes here, the important thing to know is that they can spread much wider than they go deep, and they do best when they have a lot of room to grow. Moving up from the ground, let's talk about the importance of movement. I really enjoyed the poem that was shared earlier. In this case, I asked the tree, how are you moving? Or sometimes, what limits your movement? Healthy trees need to move, and to move effectively, they need to taper and to sway. And this means that their base is wider than their tops, and their branches are wider where they attach to a tree or attach to the trunk than they are at the very ends where the smallest twigs are. Taper forms from the movement of the tree, and it is related to the formation of reaction wood, which I will discuss in the next slide. The ability to be flexible allows trees to be more resilient in wind, snow, and ice. A well-tapered trunk, such as those of a sequoia tree, confers tremendous stability to trees. Some trees naturally taper more than others, so what you see in a sequoia is not what you would necessarily see in a maple. But still, maples relative to their species have a certain degree of taper. In a way, I've come to see taper as sort of a healthy athleticism in a tree. When trees are topped or unable to move naturally, their resilience and strength is often limited significantly. Related to taper, the next question I ask a tree is, are you able to withstand a windstorm or ice storm? If you, tree, are removed from this stand, will the remaining trees still be okay? Directly related to creating taper is the formation of reaction wood. Reaction wood is the formation and hardening of specialized cells produced by the tree's cambium in response to movement, lean, or bearing weight. These special cells, which develop over time, give a tree a sort of localized strengthening. The particular type of reaction wood I want to focus on is formed when trees move in strong wind. In Douglas fir stands in particular, you may find that trees along the wind-buffeted edge of a stand have more reaction wood and taper than interior trees. Trees that develop reaction wood are called wind firm. When you remove these trees, you often open up the interior part of a stand, which is not prepared for wind, and often a storm or strong wind will cause these interior trees to fall like matchsticks. As you can see from the photo on the right, these exposed trees have really very little taper. Similarly, trees that have had their interior foliage on their branches removed ostensibly to allow wind to flow through them are actually more unstable in the wind. The wind gusts catch in the leaves at the ends of the branches, and because the branch is no longer tapered, it may end up failing. In the photo on the left, the oak tree with the leaves removed from the lower half of their branches it has a greater chance of branch failure than actually the oak tree on the left. So I use these questions, these indicators as a framework to focus my attention and when possible to inform my actions. If soil is limiting, if roots have been cut, are there ways to improve the situation? If the soil is too dry, do competing weeds or grass need to be removed? You get the picture. Looking at trees in stands or patches or undeveloped areas, I try to notice patterns with my questions. What has changed recently? What is competing with trees for soil, moisture, and light? As a very general rule, in drier areas such as Eastern Oregon, trees compete underground for moisture. That's when you're driving over the pass and when you're going over to Sisters, you will begin to see how the ponderosa pine are spaced out in their landscape, and that's because water is limited there. In wetter areas like the Willamette Valley, trees compete above ground for light. Some trees, such as Oregon white oak, become stressed if they receive too much summer irrigation. I look to see if there is a discernible edge of wind-firm trees along the side of a tree stand, or maybe a forest is relatively wind-free, as is sometimes indicated by standing snags, which are, as you know, important for wildlife. As an urban forest changes, it needs to be monitored on a regular basis, always asking questions like, what is limiting? What is invading? What is doing well, and why? So at this point, I guess I just want to say, to help trees function optimally in a changing landscape, I start with a lot of questions. But now I think it's your turn to start discussing a question in a breakout room. So, or via chat. So, so maybe we'll take a little break and then we can come back and talk some more.
Okay, so thank you so much, Kristen. And we actually are going into breakout rooms. And I am, and we're going to have a question, and we're actually going to just drop it down to one question because we're running a little bit behind.
Okay. I think this is the question you may be discussing, but
That's exactly the question. Thank you. So if you want to leave it up there, I do not need to go to my, to the one that I had ready. So
Okay.
excellent. So we're going to have, so Jack and Kat, who are kind of orchestrating our Zoom thing, are going to send us to breakout rooms. If you haven't been, you will see something come up on your screen that tells you to click on it to go to your breakout room. And then we are going to get together, introduce ourselves, and then come up as have a little discussion around kind of what our impact is as humans, or what are other impacts on our urban forests. So, and we will see you back here at 10:55. So we don't have that much time, but we will do our best during that time. So breakout should be showing up now.
okay. Tell me if I need to stop sharing so that you can see each other.
Yeah, I think you can stop sharing now. Thanks.
Okay.
So in a moment, everyone should see on their screen a prompt to join a breakout room. So once that prompt shows up on your screen, you'll just click join room, and you'll go into your breakout session. Though this whole meeting is being recorded, the breakout rooms will not be recorded. So whoever is leading that group will take notes for when we share back to the full group. So once you see it on your screen, you can click join and enter your breakout room. So anyone still in this room, you should get a prompt on your screen to join that room.
Is anyone having any technical difficulties connecting? Sandra, I see you're talking, but you're muted.
Ta-da! Okay. Ooh. I apologize. We've been having a lot of trouble with our internet connection. It keeps going in and out. It's very unstable. So we'll try to participate as long as we're able to.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Now I can't hear anybody.
Sandra, did you get the invitation? Jack, can you confirm that Sandra has?
Yeah, everyone's gotten their invite, but I don't know that I can resend any invite.
Gotcha.
So let's see. David, I'll try sending you a new one and see if that works.
And I see Barbara is still here. Barbara, did you get your invitation?
Barbara and Jim, I think, might both be on the same computer.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And then Nancy, did you have any questions? Did you have your invite pop up?
So David, if you click on that Zoom icon at the bottom of your screen, sort of down at the very bottom, there should be a blue icon. It's possible that the invite sort of opened in a different tab. So if you try clicking down on that blue Zoom icon, it might show you another window with the invite maybe. Looks like David was able to get into his room.
Yep.
Nancy, are you still there? So I'm gonna pause the recording
I was just going to
right
say.
now.
And I am actually going to share my screen as we come back in. So, Kristen, I'm going to have to ask you to unshare for just a minute so I can go in. And what I was going to do is just record people's responses. There we go. Okay, so I want to go through the groups, and I hope all the group leaders know their first name. I hope everybody had a chance to get together. I ended up with two wonderful people in my group who I know well, and it was lovely to have a conversation around this. So I'm going to go through, and I'm going to call on, so if you're a group leader, go ahead and unmute. And then I'm just going to call you. And then what I want you to do is share a problem that you discussed and then what you thought maybe was the cause. And I'm just going to kind of record these. I don't want all of them. Just give me one problem. And we'll just, I think for time, we're just going to go through from each of the 11 groups and go back. So who was group one? What was your problem?
One of the first thing that brought up is Cindy Ellison brought up that she sees a lot with her going to help with setting up the backyard habitat is soil compaction under trees. That's the oftentimes from gas powered leaf blowers, and then also not adding any amendments to the soil. So soil compaction is causing trees not to be as healthy.
Okay. Human practices. So humans. Okay. Group two, what do you have?
We don't know what group we were in.
Didn't see your group number when you
we were 9. We were 9, Tom.
Oh, good. Thanks, Joe.
Uh-oh, I don't know either. Sorry.
Okay, why don't you
Same problem.
We'll just go through everybody. If you were a group leader, feel free to speak up. Just don't do it more than once. Okay. So
Okay,
next group.
I was group 6. And
That's group 5.
Sharon Hawley. And
Okay.
we had some really good, unfortunately, examples of things on both the climate change and the human side. But I'm going to say climate change was big. There was several examples of drought. And
Okay, give me specific examples, not the cause, but the specific.
Okay. The beetles in Eastern Oregon that are affecting the trees so badly, and they're already stressed. from.
And that is probably climate, right?
Yeah.
Okay, another group leader. What do
Okay,
you
so
got?
Mary, and we talked about invasive species. And that's probably human caused. You know, how they stress the trees and how they really hurt the soil as well. But human caused and neglect.
Okay.
Okay, I can go next because I don't have my number. We talked about a couple things. One was heavy construction and demolition and the effect on trees, and that was human caused. And we also talked about drought and climate change.
Okay, since
Those
we
are
have
two
kind of
things, sorry.
action, I'm going to go, and that would be drought would be climate. Okay.
Stephanie, I'll go next. Even now I know we're group 9. We talked about the lack of a forestry management plan in Springbrook Park, where the maples and cherry are dying now, and they're just falling down, and there's no plan to deal with it.
So that is definitely
Neglect, kind of, but it's a human neglect.
okay. So and then next group, what do you have?
This is Mark. We were talking about how the client, how we do not have a place where we can learn how the changes in the environment are impacting our trees and what we need to do about it. It's a combination of climate being warming and drying of the climate, and the lack of information, or the human cause is a lack of information as to how we care for our trees, whether they need water, whether they don't, that kind of thing.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, I'll go on group 4. And
okay.
we talked about primarily the need for education, especially in terms of soil health. And so that would be human caused, and specifically educating arborists not to over trim trees, educating landscapers to minimize use of pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, and desiccating agents like leaf blowers, especially on dirt. And we also talked about the city planting trees, which is great, but not watering them. And so the need for taking care of the trees that we have.
Okay, that's a lot.
Stephanie, this is my group 11. We noted the other climate changes that other groups had. One that has not been mentioned is the loss of larger significant trees from our urban forest, and that's human caused.
Okay, I'm group 10 when you're ready.
Okay.
Okay, we talked about a number of things, but one of them was that our landscaping practices, paving so much of our properties, and leaf blowing, just damaging and not contributing to soil health. So just landscaping practices in our.
What about the soil fungus?
Honey, we're not doing everything, just one answer.
That's good, you guys. And I want you to keep all your notes that you had, because we're going to take a look at all of that and share it with the group. So this is just to get an idea, and then also to give Kristen an idea of what people are thinking about and kind of where we are in our background and thinking. Okay, so it was kind of landscaping practices that damage soil. Anybody else have anything else that I haven't reported out yet?
I just wanted to check in here if we are wrapping things up. We're running a little bit behind, so we're about due for a break. So whenever we're finished here, we'll go ahead and move on to the tree trivia and the break.
Oh, okay. Okay, and then the thing that we noted in ours are dead cedars around the city, big dead cedars. Okay. So, so I guess Kat just said we're going to take a quick break. There'll be a little tree trivia up during break, but this is your time to grab a cup of coffee or go to the bathroom. And then when we get back, we will be coming back with Kristen. And what do we have, 5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes. So come back at around 11:07.
Okay, we will see you then.
Sounds good. And I'm going to go ahead and put up the tree trivia. So the way this is going to work is I have a few polls set up. So the poll should pop up on your screen, and then you just select one of the options for whatever answer you think is correct. And after about a minute or so, I'll go ahead and tell you what the answer is, and we'll move on to the next question. Okay?
Yeah. And to clarify, the trivia is just for anyone who either doesn't want to take a break and wants to keep participating, but feel free to take a break as well.
Absolutely. Yes, please do take a break if you need to. Tree trivia is fun, but again, take care of yourself. All right. So it should have the first question up there. And just to make things a little bit fun, I'm going to play some music. All right, so looks like we have most people. See, there's a couple answers still coming in. If you just want to finish up, and then we're going to move on to the next question. I know it's a tough one. Got some great trivia courtesy of Mike Buck. Thank you, Mike, for putting these questions together. They're all fantastic. Some of them are very tricky. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the polling now. So we'll see what the correct answer is. All right, so the correct answer is red alder. Red alder. All right. We're going to move on to the next question. So this one's also a little bit tricky. Go ahead and answer that. We'll have about a minute, and then we're going to move on to the last question. All right, coming close to a minute. So if you haven't voted yet, I'm going to go ahead and end the polling now. We're going to move on to the next question, okay? Looks like you both favored Sitka spruce and Western red cedar, but the correct answer is Western red cedar. All right. One more question. All right, we've got a nice mix here. About another 20 seconds. All right. So it looks like most people are all set with their answers, and most people got it right. So ash is the correct answer. All right, that's it for tree trivia. We're all set. So we have about another minute or so for a break to get everybody back, and then we'll go ahead and let Kristen continue her presentation. Thanks, everybody.
Do I get to bet my 3 right answers for Final Jeopardy to see if I can come out the champion?
Sure, why not? We'll have a bonus round at the end. We do have lots of questions. Mike put together a great list of about 10 questions, and just for time, we had to limit it to 3. So it was really hard to choose the 3 questions that we would use. I'm gonna give it about another minute or 2, and then Kristen, if you want to get set up.
Okie dokie.
There you go. I think you're next on the list. All right, so for time, let's go ahead and get started. Just because we're running about 8 minutes behind now. So Kristen, it's all up to you now.
Okay. So hopefully you can still hear me. Everything's all set up.
Yep, sounds great.
Okay. So one of the things that I am frequently asked is, how will global climate change affect our urban forests? Note that I'm always asked this as if it will happen in the future. And as you guys already know, global change is happening now. According to the Climate Change Response Network, among the things to keep in mind about global climate change is the scale that it's happening in. Climate change is seen and felt on a regional and sometimes continental scale in the form of significantly hot summers and drier summers and wetter or more intense winters. The browning trees in this photo are suffering from widespread drought, which is probably an indication of the forest's response for climate change. And of course, this then sets up these trees to be attacked by invasive species, attacked by invasive insects, as you guys already know. Other issues associated with climate change include soil loss or degraded soils from heavy rains, opportunistic invasive plants that take advantage of ecological niches due to native tree and shrub mortality, shortening of wildfire return intervals, changes in flowering, fruiting, and dormancy schedules in plants, changes in wildlife habitat, forest structure and composition, and plant susceptibility to uncommon diseases or insect invasions. Clearly, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. However, when it comes to urban forests, the areas where you are seeing and will see the direct effects of climate change will most likely be in the least managed, most natural areas of urban forests. These are the areas that are sort of outside of what most cities spend a lot of time taking care of. In other words, the areas that are arguably the most important areas for sustaining overall watershed and urban forestry health are the ones that are being affected by climate change. Street trees and park trees and yards are affected less by climate change and actually more by human changes. Oops, I need to click on my thing here and then advance. Here we go. Human influence on urban trees is often more extreme than the things that we are seeing with climate change, but they're limited to smaller areas and obviously, as you can see, sometimes to individual trees. And as you can see from these photos, these are pretty amazing. So, you know, you have the photo of the topped cedar tree on the left there. Clearly, that's not moving much. That's not taking advantage of very much of the urban forest, nor is it really doing much except perhaps sequestering some carbon. Sometimes we kill trees with too much affection, and too much water in the soil can actually cause root disease or disease rot at the butt. The choices that we make on the trees that we plant. Sometimes we're planting exotic trees in a landscape, such as exotic birches, and these tend to be far more susceptible to insect invasion. The photo in the center shows a birch that has been attacked by bronze birch borer. And then the tree on the right is a Port Orford cedar that is killed by a soil-borne pathogen, Phytophthora pathogen. But you know, other trees in a urban environment may look like this after they've been killed by the indiscriminate use of weed and feed, because weed and feed will fertilize a lawn, but the weed part, the herbicide part of weed and feed thinks that trees are the weed that they need to get rid of. And so you will sometimes see trees die in the landscape that way. Of course, while climate change can cause a whole forest to turn brown or become attacked by insects, a few days with a chainsaw and a cat can remove a forest completely to ready the land for new houses. So these are the common kind of human influence stressors. You came up with some more, which are fantastic. The good news is that with a little awareness, a lot of these issues can be virtually eliminated in and around cities. Oops. So while I was lying in bed on late Thursday night thinking about this talk, I realized that I would be remiss to not say a few words about building and developing in the iconic mature Douglas firs that define so much of the city of Lake Oswego, and to a lesser extent to talk about the oaks. For as long as I have been working for ODF, this has been top of mind for Lake Oswego. And it's one of the reasons that Lake Oswego has one of the largest, if not the largest, percentage of treed canopy of any city in the state. So I know I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know. And I also know that Lake Oswego retains an excellent urban forester to deal with situations like this. So I hope I'm not saying things that she doesn't already agree with as well. But anyway, as you know, building and living around mature, tall Douglas fir trees can be dangerous, especially in recently cleared or newly cleared areas. As I discussed earlier, Douglas firs that are not wind firm can topple over when they're exposed to strong winds. Additionally, there are some significant Douglas fir root diseases, such as laminated root disease, that if it is present in a stand, not only makes whole tree failure very possible, but it may also catalyze the removal of adjacent trees so that to try to stem the spread of the root disease. Other issues like red ring rot, which you can see on the right side photo, and it's indicated by the conchs that are going along the trunks of those trees. Sometimes those types of situations may require a decision to leave a tree and monitor the progression of the decay in the tree, or it may sometimes require that you remove single trees entirely in the hopes of not destabilizing the entire stand. It's really quite complicated. So as I said, I know that Lake Oswego works and has worked very diligently in trying to figure out how best to manage these trees with competing demands on the land and development pressures. Having said this, I just want to assure you that when you have a Douglas fir, individual Douglas firs in parks and stuff, they are often a lot more stable than the trees I am talking about, because they've been able to grow, again, with branches along the side of their trunks that have enabled them to develop some natural taper and stability. But it still is important to have those big Douglas firs assessed regularly by a professional. And finally, as a reminder, if you have, or if you know people that have spaces to plant young Doug fir near their homes or your home right now, you might consider doing so, even if it might mean in time that it might shade out a little sunlight, because even if you cannot enjoy that tree at maturity, maybe some future homeowner will. And a tree that is grown in a given place on its own roots, holding that soil for a period of time, is a great way to make a tree very stable. Finally, I want to say a couple of things. A lot of what you guys are already doing, looking at permitting, educating the public. You have great Arbor Day celebrations, I know. You host ivy pulls, you maintain, the Watershed Council maintains an informative website. You educate students about soil, you restore riparian areas, all the outreach activities you do, that is fantastic. So kudos to all of you who are here, who participate in those activities and all of that. That's amazing. And as I said, you really are a model community in that respect. As I mentioned earlier, it is in the wilder areas of the watershed that you will likely see the most changes related to climate change. So your activities really serve to mitigate the effects of climate change and contribute significantly to the health of the watershed that feeds into Lake Oswego. With other parts of the forest, keep in mind the indicators, the conversations that I have with trees. Improving the soil under trees by adding organic mulch. And as was mentioned earlier, maybe trying to lessen the amount of leaf blowing away from underneath landscapes. Making sure that trees can move, pruning trees so that natural taper is maintained. All this contributes to a resilient and sustainable and healthy urban forest. But just as important, and as you already know, take people outside, not just people you know, not just people who are friends that you walk with, but take people who don't necessarily know all this stuff and tell them about trees. Show them how to notice taper, how to think about root spread, how to look at soil. Of course, when you can, plant trees, and continue to host and attend workshops and summits like this one. Too often, issues around urban trees polarize a community. I once read that in America, you can hear someone say, almost in the same breath, there should be a law against that, and no one's going to tell me what to do. Studies have shown that spouting facts and making emotional appeals actually do not change beliefs or behavior very effectively. Instead, other research has shown that effective behavior change strategies include things like setting standards, connecting to values, establishing social norms. Cities recognized as Tree Cities USA, like Lake Oswego has been for decades, convey that type of message. Having and calling upon a cadre of master gardeners, of tree summit volunteers, tree woodland, master woodland managers, hosting pruning workshops, gardening tours, all reflect that a community values plant health, even in a climate of change. My son had a first grade teacher who had a sign that said, "No one has ever changed their behavior in the absence of trust." I've heard from other facilitators that one way to get disparate interests to come together is to engineer a way for people that hold these different views to spend large chunks of time together. I know this is hard to believe in this climate because we are so busy. It's so hard for us to get together, so hard to talk to each other face to face. But it really speaks to the importance of getting this done. I have experienced this actual thing myself when I once served on an ordinance committee that had in it a bunch of builders and developers. Not only did I end up liking the individuals on the committee that were, had different views than I did, I came away with a much greater understanding of the challenges that they face in the work that they do. Finally, remember that regulation should always be a last resort. Laws define the behavior that will be punished. It defines a low bar. It should not be used to try to attain aspirational goals. Campaigns, outreach, and incentives help cities and their residents reach farther and act better than they might do ordinarily. We live in a time of tremendous change, and never before have our urban forests been more important to our lives. Thank you all for participating in this summit today, for caring about urban trees, and for the work you will do carrying these messages forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Very, very informative and gives us a lot to think about. We have about 5 minutes here for a short question and answer period. So if anyone has any questions, please put those in the chat and I'll read them out for Kristen as they come through. Or Kristen, if you see a question pop up that you want to go after, then that's great as well. So any questions you might have, feel free to put them in the chat. Here's a question from Masin. For lawmakers, what advice do you give them to preserve our urban forestry?
Well, this was discussed a little bit in the breakout session that I attended, and I guess one of the things I would say to the community in general and to policymakers and decision makers as a whole is that you have a lot more power and advocacy if you have come together and you have built and thought through a strong urban forestry management plan. Because basically it shows that a healthy urban forest is a result of ongoing management. It's not just something that happens all at once or because your community has been blessed with beautiful trees. It's something that needs to be done consistently and monitored over time. Okay.
Thank you. And then we have Mike sent a question earlier and a more recent one, so I'll read both of those for you. Can accompanying lower trees provide a kind of surrogate taper for a taller tree with no lower branching? And then he was also wondering for anyone planting a Douglas fir, what cubic feet of ground or soil would be needed for maturity?
Okay. Let's see if I can, okay. So in terms of the companion trees, so the issue with companion trees can be often that if moisture is limited, then they would compete for moisture with an existing tree. And also if you have a mature tree and then you're planting smaller trees around it, the root network of the existing maturing tree might outcompete for moisture or for space than the trees that you're trying to establish below it. So all in all, the short answer to that is that the nearby trees would probably not do much in terms of creating taper or helping taper with that larger tree. And when it comes to competing for resources, depending on your situation, there may be some negative fallout in that situation. Of course, it all depends. And it really is best to consider situations like that on a case-by-case basis. Let's see. In terms of what cubic feet or ground soil would be needed for maturity. Again, that depends on the soil resource that is available to the tree. I know that for maple trees, a scientist named James Urban once tried to determine an optimal soil volume for a 12-inch, I think it was a red maple. And a 12-inch red maple isn't that big, but he determined that an optimal amount of soil volume would be about 1,000 cubic feet of soil. So if you can imagine that ramped up several hundred times probably for a big Doug fir, ideally, a Doug fir would need a lot more than that, but a Doug fir could also grow pretty well with a lot less than that, a lot less than the maximum cubic feet. It would still need more than 1,000 cubic feet that is available, that was just described in that research, but it doesn't need the maximum amount.
Thank you. So I see some great questions in here. So maybe, Kristen, one more question from this chat, and then we'll move into our last breakout session.
Okay. Okay. I see lots of thank yous, but I'm not sure which question I should choose. Do you have one that you would like me to answer?
Yeah. There's a lot of options in here. Can you recommend some good urban forest management plans that could be used as a model, maybe from other cities?
Yes. Let me think. I think Eugene has a very good one. They had some very innovative approaches to trees. I know Portland has given a lot of thought to their tree management plans, although I always hesitate to recommend Portland because they're sort of a unicorn in this state. They're different from every other community. Smaller communities might include the city of Corvallis, the city of LeGrand also has a good one. Those are just things that come to the top of my head. There's some other ones out there I know, but and actually the other thing to understand is that many communities have tree management plans that have particular sections in them that are exemplary, that are good to pick and choose from, as opposed to necessarily modeling your plan on just one type of plan.
Very helpful. Thank you, Kristen. So next up, we have our last breakout discussion, and we'll have about 15 minutes for this discussion, and then we'll have an opportunity to come back and share out ideas for about 10 more minutes at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the breakout rooms, and feel free to join that meeting once you see the prompt on your screen. And then your breakout room leader will give you some specific questions around your topic. So for anyone still in here, we just started breakout rooms. So you should see a prompt on your screen to go ahead and join that last breakout room. Hi, Kristen.
Can you tell me what our question was for the breakout session?
Yeah. So the questions will vary based on your group. Which group were you in?
I think
okay.
I'm with Joe and Tom.
Yeah.
So number 9.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, group 9 is around habitat and tree care.
What?
Habitat and tree care. So let's see. I can send the questions directly to you, and then
okay.
It looks like Tom didn't get those questions. So
okay, so I'll go back into the room somehow. How do I do that?
I think.
Okay, I think okay.
Has everyone been having good discussions? Going well?
Very good discussions.
Wonderful. So folks are trickling back from their breakout rooms. I think there's maybe 20 seconds left till everyone will rejoin. And then we have about 10 minutes to share out our ideas.
Okay, so is everybody back?
Looks like it.
Is everybody back? Okay, so then I did want to hope everybody had a good discussion. We had a very rich discussion in the group I was in. So what I was going to do, I'm going to do the same thing that we did before. And what I'm going to do is, so that everybody has an idea of some of the things that you were talking about in your group, I am going to go to capture the ideas, but I'm going to have the group leaders. So maybe several of you were in breakout sessions that were discussing the same ideas. So I'm going to ask you to just share ideas from your group around those ideas. Okay, so maybe this will make more sense when you see my screen, and I'm hoping I have the right thing up. Okay. Can everybody see this?
Yep, it looks
That
great.
looks good.
Okay. So, so I'd like to start with the tree preservation and advocacy groups. So, Kathleen, I know you're there. Do you mind being the first one to kind of share a few ideas that you had around your?
Oh, sure. We talked about the value of having more neighborhoods involved in monitoring the type 2 tree removal applications.
Okay.
We talked about the need to create another natural resources board.
Okay.
That we talked about the new leadership in the city that will do great work in regard to helping with tree preservation in our city.
Okay. And I don't know why I just froze up, but I just completely froze up. So, okay. Hack. Okay.
And we had a very lively discussion in regard to what happened to this community when the sensitive lands issue came up.
Okay.
And that it was the downfall of a lot of good work that had been done.
Right. So, and I'll actually talk about that when we kind of get into the group I was in. So, okay. What about Betsy or Mark? What did you guys get from your group? Anything to add that you talked about?
Sure. Well, we talked about the moniker City of Trees is more aspirational than accurate. We can do much better and are highly motivated to do much better. There are different standards for individuals than there are for builders. It's much easier for a builder to level a lot or take out trees than it is for an individual, and that's unfair. The city, we would love to see more of a sense of urgency with respect to funding friends groups like Springbrook Park and other places. We need to address these issues with more of a sense of urgency. And also talking with neighbors and educating them about trees and all they have to offer before everyone gets thrown into an adversarial context in a type 2 tree hearing is good for community. It's good for community, it's good for the trees, it's good for everybody. So talking with neighbors.
Okay, excellent. Anybody else on this? Ideas that you talked about with kind of tree preservation and advocacy?
We had support neighbors in DRC, tree permit reviews. There was a suggestion that sounds fascinating if we could get it done, to gather the developers, the neighbors, and the city together and discuss common values and what we're all trying to find here, and kind of be able to, I think at the end of Kristen's talk, kind of walk a mile in their moccasins and try to figure out how we can work this out. Incentivize keeping trees rather than incentivize cutting them down, and combining the tree and the building code. That's been talked about quite a bit.
Okay. And was there another group with this? Let's see, who was?
Sharon.
Sharon, yeah.
Right. Our group talked about echoed pretty much what Betsy's and Kathleen's group talked about. The moniker, Lake Oswego City of Trees, proud of that phrase, but it's an issue when there's so many trees cutting down, so are being cut down, so that's kind of an issue. It kind of counteracts that phrase. And also discuss getting more involved with type 2 permits and getting into maybe some development issues and getting neighbors being notified of developments in their neighborhood where a lot of trees are being cut down.
Okay. I didn't put things that kind of echoed the others.
No, you don't need to. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so thank you. And it's good when you go last and you've been kind of talking about the same things. Good job. So, so small actions at home. So Betsy, not Betsy, Sharon or Mary?
So I can go really quickly. Well, one of the things is when we were talking about the kinds of things to do in landscaping, and one of them is to plant native plants and species, and specifically to actually plant some native trees. You know, the long-term benefits of those are really good.
Okay.
We also said that it's important for folks to look for arborists to check your trees out. I mean, one of the people had a oak tree come down and almost hit their house. So, you know, just having the health of your trees understood is really important. We had one person who was from the HOAs, and understanding the rules of the HOAs so that you can actually do some of the work you want to do around your HOA, maybe putting together a friends group, being able to leave leaves in the common space, being able to say that there'd be no blowing in their own space, and then really being able to understand how those HOA rules really affect your ability to be able to control, you know, how much is going on in your space. And then let's see, bring in bird feeders. Make sure that you've got some lively things happening with the critters in your yards. So that was one of the things that was recommended. I think that's pretty good.
Okay, excellent. Sharon, what did you guys come up with? I can't see Sharon. Are you there? Muted?
Sharon, you're muted.
Sharon, you're muted. Sharon,
Yes,
unmute.
no, I'm not. Okay.
Now you're not.
Quickly, I guess we all live in fairly mature areas where we didn't talk a lot about landscaping ideas, but we did talk about maintenance. One of the group that lives at Mary's Woods is part of the formal grounds committee, which is really involved in surveying the trees that are on the Mary's Woods campus and Merrillhurst, and you know, coming up with some policies about how maintenance gets done around the area. I don't know how you want to put that. Let's see what else that we didn't. We talked a little bit about some of the problems that we have already, like a lot of blacktop around the areas where roots probably are. So it'd be important to have an arborist again, check the trees for health and safety. And there was a huge, like, no leaf blowers, please. And, you know, using the leaves for all the nutrient value that they can provide.
Keep leaves in place, huh?
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. So, was there anybody else in the community action one? Kat, did you have a
I
group?
was, yep. So I had a group, so I'll just go real quickly. What I thought was really exciting is I had a couple of people who were actually not from Lake Oswego who decided to join us, so thank you. We had somebody from Albany, the city of Albany, and then also with Clackamas, so some great discussion there. So we have a lot of folks who are involved with backyard habitat, trying to become a little bit more active in the community. Really emphasizing wanting to become involved with the community and have more coordination. And then we discussed the urban forest committees as a way to organize and hopefully bring about more change and share ideas, as well as iTree for collecting data and having the community get involved with these decisions from the data perspective. We did have a scientist, an oceanographer in my group, so they were really excited about bringing science to the management decisions in the city. We also discussed some of the programs that are involved that are currently going on in the city of Albany and the city of Corvallis. So the city of Corvallis works with a lot of volunteers for tree plantings, and they have tree stewards that go around and help people learn how to prune trees or how to properly plant a tree. So that was really exciting. We also talked about a tree commission with the city of Albany, which sounds a lot like what we're trying to do with urban forest committees. So it sounds like both Albany and the city of Corvallis have some great models that we can use for the city of Lake Oswego moving forward.
So what Albany call them? They're the tree what?
That was the city of Corvallis. They are called
Had tree stewards, and then Albany had
a tree commission, and they meet monthly, and they have a staff representative from the city working with them.
Excellent.
And that was it.
Okay, and then I was with the other group, and we were talking about that need for having an urban forest management plan that actually is an active document, and that one of the things we felt that we needed, and I'm going to fill this in because I can't type and talk, what we need is actually a way to make sure that we're staying with that plan. And it'd probably be really important to have an annual state of the forest report that comes out that we could actually review as part of an annual tree summit for the community, and then also have that presented formally to council. So having some sort of regular report that you don't just have a plan, but you have some sort of way that you're showing every year how well you're actually doing that plan. And the other big thing that I think we talked about was the need to make sure that the way we think about trees and that management of trees in the city becomes part of the culture of the community. And that happens when it's not just on one person's desk, but it becomes part of things like the urban forest committees and people throughout the community. Watershed Council's involved, LOSN is involved, HOAs are involved, the urban forest committees are involved, so that we get something that's integrated into the community. And if we're going to be a tree city, then we're a tree city that culture is integrated throughout our community. And all these notes are going to be sent to all of you anyhow. So, so I'm not going to write all that down right now. So how many groups did we have that actually worked on the restoration and reforestation?
It was combined into one group.
It was one group? Okay.
So I guess it's just us then. Group 9?
Well, right.
Right.
So what we Tom, you go ahead, and then Jim Fisher and Barb, and then I can go together.
Oh, I thought there was only one group. Anyway, sorry. What I was going to say is we thought that we should focus, we've been focusing, and we should continue focusing on natural areas and HOAs. But Kristen brought up a great idea, which would work really well in Springbrook Park, which was to take a section of the park, it could be a relatively small piece or a bigger piece, and use it as a test area and show that the evolution as time goes on, and have it be adjacent to the junior high, so that the kids in the junior high could use it as a science training area, and also math. They could use it for statistical analysis. So we thought that was a great way to get education spread around, so that people understood better about the value of enhancing the areas, and starting with the kids. Joe brought this up, an ethic kind of forms when the kids are exposed to it. And I think that was a good idea.
Okay. Okay. And then the other group?
Okay, well, first of all, we talked about the efforts we do see in the city in various natural areas, watershed areas. We're making improvements, trying to save the trees and native plants. But Jackie was in our group, Jackie Mance, city council member, and she really stressed, and I give her credit for this, that we get the city council on their 2021 goals to create an urban forest plan, that it become a city goal. And that it would include having a natural resource board and also a arborist on staff. We have one now, an arborist.
Whoa, I didn't say that.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I said included in this would be the consideration of having an urban resource board. I can't speak for the whole council and the details of this. I was speaking to the fact that I will get this as a council goal, guys. Okay. I can't speak to the details. So let me be perfectly clear. I don't want to overpromise. Those who know me know I won't overpromise unless I can deliver. Sorry about that. Thank you.
No, sorry, Jackie, I'm sorry. You definitely suggested that we get the city council to have this as a goal. And so other idea came from our group and not Jackie, but the need for a natural resource board and a city arborist. Anyway, the city council goal of creating an urban forest plan. Management plan. We also talked about some of the issues of invasives in the city right-of-ways, and also that if we can get us urban management plan, that it be data-driven, which I think coordinates with what the last group was talking about, having students and whoever make sure it's scientifically based. Okay, I think that's it.
Okay. So I am thrilled. This is
Stephanie,
yes?
This is Mike, and can I just add one thing from that group? And I see Jessica Namanalou is here from the city, which is great. But I think we could see from that data from LIDAR where our potential areas are, where the spaces are for increased canopy coverage, with at least the potential. But so like in bigger properties like school districts, railroad right of way, in terms of the health there of the trees. I mean, I think we're going to get data if we can get it. And then we need the toolbox, like you've already mentioned, with both personnel and procedures and policies to go forward. Excellent.
So all good things that we think about that could be wrapped into getting a plan put together. So, it always amazes me when we get together, the amazing ideas that come out of this. And I'm going to turn it over now to Kat for kind of a quick conclusion. We've gone over a little bit, you guys, but I hope you found that this has been beneficial. I think it's been amazing. And we'll talk about next steps.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Stephanie, would you mind bringing up the...
I need to stop sharing. And then I need to bring up the... Oops.
Well, while Stephanie's figuring that out, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming. We had a wonderful turnout here. Representatives from all across Lake Oswego and beyond, which is fantastic. We had a few people here from the city, which is wonderful just to have that involvement and have things hopefully moving forward. So thank you so much for coming, and Kristen especially. Definitely really appreciated your talk. And then we have a few next steps moving forward.
Do you know the problem is I don't know how I've got this drop down thing and I can't get there. It is.
Oh, there we go. And I hope you enjoyed the tree trivia, by the way, since we have this slide up.
Okay. That's the problem when you have to, we should have had you just do this, Kat, so I didn't have to.
All right, should be just the next slide.
Next steps.
Perfect. Yeah. So I did see somebody ask in the chat, but we will be sending out an email debrief with a lot of the information as well as the notes and hopefully some of the slides from this presentation. Most likely it would be the first week of December just because next week is a holiday week and a lot of people are busy. Again, we really encourage you to send some suggestions and feedback for this tree summit so we can be better prepared for the next tree summit, which hopefully will be in person. Also, this is our first time doing something like this over Zoom, so apologize for the technical difficulties we may have had, but again, if you have any suggestions, please let us know. You can send me an email, which will be sent out with the debrief. We will be uploading this recording to YouTube, and we will send that out most likely with the debrief. Whoop.
Oops. I don't know how to go back.
Oh no.
Can you remember it without it? No.
Yeah, I have it up here. So again, we're almost done here. So just keep an eye out on our website and check our email. You can sign up, or actually it'll be added to our email list for attending. So just keep an eye out for our newsletters. We try not to spam you too much, but if we have something new and exciting, we will keep you posted. And then looking forward to next year's Tree Summit in 2021. Hopefully we can accomplish so much more. We've been really successful this year, even despite of COVID, moving forward. So hopefully next year we'll have even more to update you on. And I also really encourage you to stay engaged with Oswego Lake Watershed Council and Lake Oswego Sustainability Network. You can donate your time or financially. We could not do this without you, so we really appreciate your time here. And I think that's it. Stephanie, Jack, if you have anything else to add, feel free. But I think we're at a wrap here.
So thank you everybody for coming, and we will be in touch.
Thank you so much, everybody. Take care, stay safe, have a happy holiday week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I like the forest of gratitude from Linda.
So can we talk, our little group talk before we leave?
Oh, that's probably a good idea. We'll just hang tight for a minute.
I will need to leave pretty quick here, so.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm what notes we were writing up versus not writing up.
We can also join the other, the planning Zoom room if that's easier. I think we're